The diplomatic crisis. In the vast expanse of space, where different species mingled, traded, and often clashed, the Galactic Council convened for a pivotal meeting intended to resolve escalating tensions with Earth. The Council, composed of representatives from numerous planets, had grown wary of humanity's expanding influence, particularly in strategic sectors like trade routes and resource allocation. To them, Earth was a once primitive world that had inexplicably become a player on the galactic stage. To demonstrate goodwill and a commitment to peaceful relations, Earth's delegation arrived at the neutral space station, Celestia Prime. This grand, shimmering structure floated amidst the stars, its architecture a blend of alien aesthetics designed to impress and intimidate. Earth's delegation, led by the seasoned diplomat ambassador Alara Kincaid, included scientists, military advisors, and notably, her 10-year-old daughter Maya. Maya was a beacon of hope, a symbol of the unity Earth sought with the Council, and her presence was intended to humanize the negotiations in the eyes of the alien leaders. As the meeting commenced, the atmosphere was charged with tension. The representatives from various planets presented their concerns, voicing fears about Earth's increasing military capabilities and its plans to establish a more significant presence in interstellar affairs. Ambassador Kincaid, poised and composed, countered each argument with rational explanations, emphasizing Earth's desire for collaboration rather than confrontation. She spoke passionately about shared goals, common enemies, and the need for unity in a galaxy rife with conflict. Yet, not all Council members were convinced. A faction of the Council, comprised of representatives from more militaristic species, viewed Earth as a potential threat that needed to be contained. As discussions grew heated, a misunderstanding arose between the human security detail and the Council's enforcement unit, tasked with maintaining order. Words were exchanged and tempers flared, with the atmosphere shifting from diplomatic discourse to a potential flashpoint for violence. In a moment that would forever alter the course of history, a sudden scuffle broke out. Chaos ensued as blasters were drawn, and panic spread through the assembly. Maya, who had been quietly sketching a picture of the Council chamber, became an unintended casualty in the chaos. In the frenzy, an alien guard, misinterpreting the situation, discharged a weapon aimed at one of the human security officers, missing his target but striking Maya instead. Time seemed to slow as the room fell silent, all eyes turning to the young girl as she collapsed, the vibrant life drained from her innocent features. The horror of the moment rippled through the assembled delegates. Yet in the immediate aftermath, the Council struggled to react appropriately. While humans screamed for help and rushed to Maya's side, the Council members looked on, paralyzed by shock and confusion. As emergency medics rushed into the chamber, it quickly became clear that there was no saving her. The atmosphere shifted from shock to outrage as Ambassador Kincaid held her daughter's lifeless body, the diplomatic veneer shattered beyond repair. The Council's immediate instinct was to issue a statement calling for calm and to downplay the incident as an unfortunate accident. But their dismissive attitude only fueled the fire of humanity's anger. Despite the blood staining the floor of the meeting room, the Council representatives exchanged furtive glances, their focus shifting from the tragedy to the ramifications of the incident. They could not afford to show weakness in front of the other species gathered, nor could they allow Earth to dictate the narrative of this event. They began to calculate the political fallout, debating whether this incident might be used to consolidate their power or further isolate Earth. Ambassador Kincaid's grief turned into seething rage as she realized the Council's lack of accountability. She knew that this moment would define her mission and the future of humanity in the galaxy. Fueled by despair and anger, she stood before the Council, her voice trembling yet resolute, demanding justice for her daughter and accountability for the Council's negligence. In that moment of sorrow and outrage, the seeds of war were sown, and the Galactic Council's fate hung in the balance. The ramifications of this tragic crisis would echo through the cosmos, setting the stage for an unprecedented conflict that would reshape the galactic order and test the very limits of humanity's resolve. The Galactic Council's dismissal. In the wake of the tragedy, The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address the fallout from the incident at Celestia Prime. The Grand Chamber, usually filled with diplomatic decorum and the hum of interspecies collaboration, felt suffocatingly tense. Alien representatives from various planets were seated around a massive circular table, their expressions a mixture of concern, discomfort, and indifference. As Ambassador Alara Kincaid recounted the details of her daughter Maya's death, her voice shook with emotion. She implored the Council to take responsibility, to recognize that the incident was not just a tragic accident, but a failure of oversight and accountability. This isn't merely about one child. It's about a lack of respect for human life, she asserted, her words echoing off the opulent walls. We demand justice and recognition of the tragedy that has befallen our family and our people. The Council's reaction was tepid at best. A representative from the planet Zarkin, known for its militaristic tendencies, leaned forward, his elongated features twisted in a dismissive sneer. Ambassador Kincaid, while we understand your grief, you must consider that the child was in the wrong place at the wrong time. We cannot afford to let this incident jeopardize our ongoing discussions. Another council member, a smooth-talking diplomat from the aquatic world of Sarathia, chimed in with a condescending tone. Indeed, accidents happen. It would be unwise to escalate this matter. We all have our issues. Your world is not the only one with a tragic story. This comment drew murmurs of agreement from several other representatives, their voices creating a wave of dismissive chatter. Ambassador Kincaid felt her blood boil at their indifference. The dismissal of her daughter's life, trivialized as a mere statistic in their political games, cut deeper than any weapon. This is not just a story. This was my daughter, a child who symbolized the hope of a new alliance between our worlds. She fought to keep her composure, her heart racing with grief and anger. Yet the Council seemed more focused on maintaining their collective image than addressing the moral implications of what had occurred. Their unwillingness to acknowledge the depth of human suffering was palpable, the silence more telling than any words. As Kincaid pressed for justice, it became clear that the Council was determined to move on, viewing the situation as an unfortunate obstacle to their diplomatic agenda rather than a moral failing. A representative from the planet Therax, known for its strategic brilliance but lacking empathy, suggested a token gesture instead. Perhaps a brief moment of silence in honor of the child would suffice, followed by a public statement reinforcing our commitment to maintaining order within our council. He proposed, as if suggesting a mere formality could assuage the pain of a grieving mother. Ambassador Kincaid's heart sank further. A moment of silence would do nothing to heal her wound or address the systemic issues that had led to this tragedy. The Council's dismissive attitude only solidified her resolve to take action. This is not enough. Justice must be served, not just for my daughter, but for all who have suffered at the hands of the Council's negligence. If you refuse to acknowledge this, you risk plunging our worlds into chaos. The Council members exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from irritation to disbelief at Kincaid's escalating defiance. They had expected her to be a compliant negotiator, one who would accept their dismissive platitudes. Instead, she stood as a formidable force, embodying the grief and anger of a united humanity. Despite the growing unrest among the human delegation, the Council continued to play their political games, seeking to maintain their image of control and authority. They debated internally, weighing the potential backlash from a powerful species against the possible disruptions to their plans for galactic governance. Ultimately, they chose a path of inaction, believing that appeasement and minimal acknowledgement would suffice. As the session ended, Kincaid left the chamber feeling more isolated and betrayed than ever. She understood that the Council's refusal to take responsibility would have dire consequences, not only for her, but for all of Earth. In that moment of resolve, she began to formulate a plan. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity for far too long, and she would ensure that they would no longer dismiss Earth as a minor player in the grand cosmic scheme. The ramifications of their actions would soon become clear, setting in motion a chain of events that would shatter the fragile peace of the galaxy. Earth's anguish turns to fury. Back on Earth, the news of the tragedy and the Galactic Council's cold response reverberated across the globe. As the media reported on the events at Celestia Prime, shock turned to disbelief, and disbelief spiraled into outrage. Social media erupted with hashtags like hashtag Justice for Maya and hashtag Galactic Council Crimes, trending worldwide as millions expressed their grief and anger over the senseless loss of a child. In homes across the planet, families gathered around their screens, watching the harrowing footage of Ambassador Kincaid's impassioned plea and the callousness of the council members. Images of Maya, smiling and full of life, flooded the internet, accompanied by heart-wrenching tributes and memories shared by those who had known her. The child had become a symbol of innocence lost, and her death struck a chord deep within the hearts of humanity. In the streets, vigils were held, candles flickering in the twilight, as people mourned collectively. Sorrow soon turned to anger, fueling protests outside government buildings and embassies. People shouted slogans demanding justice, their voices echoing through the air. No justice, no peace. The anger was palpable, a tidal wave of emotion crashing against the walls of apathy that the Galactic Council had built around their decision-making. At the United Nations Assembly, leaders convened to discuss the ramifications of the incident. Tensions ran high as representatives argued passionately about how to respond. Some called for calm and restraint, advocating for diplomatic channels to be pursued despite the Council's failure. Others, however, fueled by the fervor of their constituents, demanded immediate action, warning that a show of weakness would only embolden the Council's arrogance. Among the leaders, Ambassador Kincaid's husband, a military strategist, stood firmly in favor of retaliation. "This isn't just about one child. It's about our dignity as a species," he argued, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "We cannot let them view us as weak. We have the technology, the power, and the will to respond. They've crossed a line that we cannot ignore." In the following days, the government's deliberations became increasingly contentious. Protests grew more intense, with crowds marching through the streets, demanding the mobilization of Earth's military forces and the unveiling of the long-hidden ancient fleet. The once peaceful streets were now filled with banners and chants, the people's fury boiling over into a collective call for action against the Galactic Council. As tensions reached a breaking point, a gathering of high-ranking military officials met in secret to discuss the implications of the tragedy and the Council's dismissal. Old blueprints and forgotten technologies were pulled from archives, a stark reminder of the ancient fleet that lay dormant, a fleet that had once protected Earth from the dark threats of the galaxy. Plans for a mobilization were drawn up in hushed tones, the gravity of their discussions punctuated by the weight of what lay ahead. In every corner of the planet, the atmosphere shifted. People who had once viewed the Galactic Council with a mixture of awe and apprehension began to see them as oppressors rather than allies. The Council's inaction and dismissal sparked a fire in the hearts of humanity, uniting them in ways never before imagined. Communities that had once been divided by politics and ideology now rallied together, recognizing a common purpose: vengeance. As news of Earth's potential response reached the Galactic Council, fear began to ripple through their ranks. The Council had long underestimated humanity, viewing them as little more than an upstart species, easily manipulated and controlled. But as the anger of billions surged forth, it became clear that they were dealing with a force fueled by grief and the thirst for justice. In the face of overwhelming fury, Ambassador Kincaid gathered a team of strategists and military advisors, urging them to take decisive action. The Council had ignored their pleas for justice, and it was time for humanity to unleash the might that had been hidden for centuries. With each passing hour, the resolve of Earth's leaders grew stronger, transforming their anguish into a relentless pursuit of retribution. The tragic death of a single child had ignited a revolution of thought and purpose, uniting humanity under a banner of vengeance and determination. The Galactic Council's dismissal would not go unanswered, and soon the galaxy would witness the awakening of a power long thought dormant. one that would change the course of history forever. The reveal of the ancient fleet. In the midst of rising tensions and public outcry, Earth's military leadership convened in a secret underground facility known as the Sentinel Bunker, hidden beneath the rugged landscape of the Rocky Mountains. For years, this facility had been a relic of the Cold War, its walls lined with ancient technology and forgotten histories. However, it was also the last bastion of humanity's hidden power. The ancient fleet, a massive armada of warships that had been decommissioned for decades, but preserved in a state of readiness, awaiting the day when Earth might need them once more. The fleet consisted of colossal starships, designed during a time when humanity faced existential threats from various alien species. Each vessel was a marvel of engineering, equipped with advanced weaponry and shielding systems far beyond what was commonly seen in the galaxy. These ships had been crafted for survival, each one carrying the weight of humanity's history and the sacrifice of those who had fought to protect their home. As the military leaders gathered around a holographic display, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. General Rain, a grizzled veteran with deep lines etched across his face, stood at the forefront, his eyes reflecting the light of the display. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady but filled with urgency, "the time has come to awaken the fleet. We can no longer afford to stand idly by while the Galactic Council disregards our sovereignty." The hologram flickered to life, revealing a schematic of the ancient fleet, its various ships arranged in formation, each designated with names that echoed through history: Dreadnought, Aegis, Invictus, and Defiant. As the generals studied the display, their minds raced with possibilities and strategies. This was not merely a military response. It was a declaration of humanity's resilience and a restoration of their rightful place among the stars. To many, the fleet was a myth, spoken of only in hushed tones among the military elite. It had been decades since anyone had laid eyes on these ships, their hulls dormant in vast hangars hidden from prying eyes. The decision to reactivate them carried profound implications, not only for Earth's defense, but for the very fabric of galactic politics. The first step in revealing the fleet was to conduct a thorough assessment of each ship's readiness. Teams of engineers and technicians were assembled, racing against time to ensure that every weapon system was operational, every shield generator fully functional. The sounds of machinery filled the hangars as crews worked tirelessly, rekindling the dormant engines that had been silent for far too long. In the heart of the bunker, a vast chamber housed the flagship of the ancient fleet, the Elysium, a behemoth of a ship that had once been the pride of Earth's naval forces. As its hangar doors slid open, the sheer size of the vessel loomed above, casting a shadow over the assembly below. Its hull was marked by the scars of past battles, a testament to its storied history. With the fleet now active, General Rain briefed the commanders on the strategy for their upcoming mission. "We will not just send a message. We will remind the galaxy of who we are," he declared. "This is about more than vengeance. It's about establishing a new equilibrium. The Council must understand that humanity will not be a target for their complacency any longer." The commanders nodded in agreement, their resolve strengthening as they realized the gravity of the moment. The awakening of the ancient fleet signified a shift not only in military capabilities, but in humanity's collective consciousness. They were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species ready to reclaim its dignity and assert its place in the galaxy. As the technicians completed their final checks, the fleet's sensors began to light up, their systems coming online one by one. The hum of energy coursing through the ships was a symphony of potential, resonating with the collective heartbeat of a united Earth. The crews gathered on the bridge of the Elysium, anticipation palpable in the air as they prepared to transmit their first signal to the Galactic Council, a bold assertion of their readiness to act. The leaders of Earth understood that their decision would reverberate through the galaxy, and with it came a heavy burden of responsibility. They had chosen the path of confrontation, and the stakes could not be higher. As the ships powered up, their thrusters igniting with a dazzling brilliance, humanity prepared to send a message. The ancient fleet had returned, and Earth was no longer willing to be a pawn in the Council's games. In the depths of the bunker, the crew of the Elysium watched as the enormous doors of the hangar opened, revealing the vastness of space beyond. Their hearts raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. They were about to embark on a mission that would define their world for generations to come. With each passing second, they understood that the galaxy was about to witness the resurgence of a species that had once been underestimated, a reckoning that would alter the course of history itself. The unleashing of vengeance. As the Elysium and its sister ships of the ancient fleet prepared for launch, the atmosphere on Earth crackled with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Billions watched through various forms of media as the fleet's reactivation signified a turning point in humanity's response to the Galactic Council. A collective breath was held across the planet, for they were about to witness their legacy take flight. A legacy built on the sacrifices of generations past, and now, fueled by a burning desire for justice. The command center on the Elysium buzzed with activity as the crew finalized preparations for their mission. Commander Sarah Vera, a seasoned officer with a reputation for her tactical brilliance, stood at the helm, her eyes scanning the readouts that filled the screens before her. "All systems are green. We're ready to launch," she announced, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Each member of her crew felt the urgency of their mission. They were not just fighting for their own lives, but for the memory of Maya Kincaid and all those who had suffered at the hands of the Galactic Council. With a deafening roar, the fleet's engines ignited, propelling the Elysium and its brethren into the vast expanse of space. The ships emerged from their hangars like titans awakened from slumber, their hulls gleaming under the distant stars. As they soared into the cosmos, the resolve of humanity burned bright within each vessel. The Council had crossed a line, and now the Earth would unleash its vengeance, no longer the passive player in galactic politics. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Commander Vera initiated the protocol for communications. "We're sending a message to the Galactic Council," she declared, her fingers dancing over the console. "They need to know that we are coming and that we will not back down." With the push of a button, the signal pulsed through the stars, a bold declaration of humanity's intent echoing through the corridors of power within the Council. The message was simple yet profound. "This is Earth. We have awakened our fleet. Prepare for reckoning." It was a statement that carried the weight of the anguish and fury that had gripped the planet, a rallying cry for those who had felt unheard and disrespected. Across the galaxy, the Council members received the transmission, their expressions a mix of disbelief and fear. They had underestimated humanity, but now they could feel the tide turning, a storm brewing on the horizon. As the fleet transitioned out of hyperspace, they arrived at the outer reaches of Council space, where the first wave of enemy ships awaited. These were the Council's enforcers, vessels designed to intimidate and control. However, they were unprepared for the ferocity of the ancient fleet. The commander of the enemy forces, a calculating Zarkonian known for his ruthless efficiency, scoffed at the sight of the human ships, dismissing them as relics of a bygone era. Little did he know that they were powered by a renewed spirit and a thirst for retribution. Vera gave the order to engage, her voice resonating with a sense of purpose. "Prepare weapons and target the lead ship. Show them that humanity is not to be trifled with." The crew sprang into action, their training taking over as they activated the ship's weaponry. Turrets whirred to life, energy beams charging as they locked onto their targets. The Elysium stood at the forefront, a symbol of humanity's return to power. The first volley of energy weapons struck the enemy fleet with devastating precision, tearing through their shields and igniting chaos among their ranks. The Zarkonian ships faltered, their commanders scrambling to respond to the unexpected onslaught. Vera's strategy was clear. They would not merely defend. They would attack with unrelenting ferocity, making their point known through sheer might. As the battle raged on, the crew of the Elysium fought with a fervor that shocked the enemy. Each explosion lit up the darkness of space, illuminating the determination etched on the faces of the humans aboard. They were no longer just fighting for revenge. They were reclaiming their dignity, demonstrating that they would no longer be victims of the Council's indifference. Throughout the fleet, other ships followed suit, executing maneuvers that had been honed in simulations for years. Coordinated assaults crippled enemy vessels, their once ominous presence dwindling under the relentless barrage from the ancient fleet. Vera monitored the battle from the command deck, adrenaline surging as she witnessed her strategy unfold flawlessly. In the chaos of the conflict, the Zarkonian commander called for reinforcements, realizing too late that this would be a battle unlike any he had faced. Desperation crept into his voice as he ordered his ships to regroup, but his words were drowned out by the sounds of destruction echoing across the void. Humanity's fury was relentless, and with each passing moment, the tide of the battle shifted further in their favor. As Earth's fleet pressed forward, the Council's ships began to realize the gravity of their situation. The defiance of humanity was palpable, and the fear that had simmered beneath the surface began to explode. They had miscalculated, thinking Earth weak and divided, but they had awakened a sleeping giant, one ready to reclaim its place in the galaxy. The battle would not be won quickly, and the losses would be felt on both sides. Yet, with every strike against the Council's forces, humanity proved that their resilience was unmatched. The cries for justice had morphed into roars of vengeance, and the galaxy would soon understand that Earth was no longer willing to accept the role of the overlooked underdog. The unleashing of vengeance had only just begun. The Galactic Uprising. As the dust settled from the first skirmish, it became evident that humanity's resolve had ignited something far greater than a simple military response. The ancient fleet, propelled by righteous fury and a newfound unity among Earth's citizens, had sown the seeds of a larger insurrection across the galaxy. What began as a response to a tragic loss quickly morphed into a widespread movement that threatened to destabilize the Galactic Council's iron grip on power. Across countless star systems, the ramifications of humanity's actions reverberated like a shockwave. Alien species, many of whom had long suffered under the Council's oppressive rule, began to take notice of Earth's audacity. The stories of the ancient fleet's triumphant reemergence spread like wildfire, whispered in hushed tones among those who had felt the sting of injustice. For the first time in centuries, oppressed civilizations dared to dream of rebellion. On the fringes of Council territory, in places where the Council's influence had been minimal, alliances began to form. Planets that had once been at odds, driven by ancient rivalries and mistrust, found common cause in the face of a shared enemy. The Draxian Confederation, known for their fierce independence, reached out to the Koroth Collective, a group of technologically advanced beings who had been subjugated by the Council for generations. Together, they rallied their forces, inspired by humanity's bold stand against tyranny. In secret meetings held in shadowy corners of the galaxy, representatives from these disparate factions convened. They exchanged strategies, resources, and information about the Council's vulnerabilities. The Galactic Uprising was taking shape, and the flames of resistance burned brighter with each passing day. No longer was it merely a struggle for Earth. It was a coalition of species fighting for freedom from oppression. Meanwhile, within the ranks of the Galactic Council, tension escalated. Council members debated furiously about how to respond to humanity's unexpected display of strength. Some called for immediate military action, while others argued for a more measured approach, advocating for diplomacy in hopes of quelling the uprising before it could grow. The fear of losing control gripped them as they realized the fragile nature of their dominance was being exposed. Among the Council, a faction of dissenters began to emerge, individuals who had grown disillusioned by the Council's oppressive policies. They understood that the uprising was not just a threat, but a potential opportunity to reshape the galaxy's political landscape. They sought to negotiate with the emerging rebel factions, hoping to create a new order, one that could acknowledge humanity's resilience while dismantling the archaic structures that had long suppressed freedom. Back on Earth, the government began to realize the scale of what they had inadvertently initiated. The military leadership recognized that the ancient fleet was only the beginning. They needed to cultivate alliances with the newfound partners among the galactic rebels. Ambassador Kincaid, who had initially been at the forefront of the diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council, shifted her focus towards outreach. Her understanding of interspecies diplomacy was crucial in forging bonds with the various factions now rallying against the Council's tyranny. As word spread of humanity's willingness to lead a rebellion, other alien species began to openly declare their allegiance. The Varaxians, once thought to be loyal subjects of the Council, pledged their advanced biotechnology to assist Earth. They had witnessed the injustice suffered by the human child, Maya Kincaid, and were inspired to join the Uprising, seeking to right the wrongs they had long ignored. Their decision to stand alongside humanity marked a turning point, a signal that the tide was shifting irrevocably. With each passing day, the ranks of the Galactic Uprising swelled. Disparate groups united under the banner of freedom, crafting a coalition that combined strength, technology, and strategy. Together, they plotted their next moves, planning simultaneous strikes against Council outposts, utilizing guerrilla tactics to disrupt their supply lines. As the Council scrambled to react, the coalition demonstrated an agility and adaptability that left their enemies reeling. They began to sabotage Council ships, freeing oppressed populations and redistributing resources that had long been hoarded by the elite. Rumors of Earth's ancient fleet became a symbol of hope for those yearning for freedom, its very existence a challenge to the status quo. The Galactic Uprising was no longer just about revenge for one child. It had evolved into a crusade for liberation that resonated with countless beings across the stars. Every successful operation sparked further defiance, further acts of rebellion erupting in various corners of the galaxy. Each victory was celebrated as a testament to unity and resilience, a reminder that the strength of the oppressed could rival the might of the powerful. The Galactic Council soon found itself in a precarious position, as its hold on power weakened with every passing day. Cracks began to appear in the Council's facade of invincibility, and whispers of dissent grew louder within their ranks. Meanwhile, the uprising intensified, emboldening species who had lived in fear for generations to finally rise against their oppressors. Humanity's initial act of defiance had transformed into a movement that resonated across galaxies, reminding all who witnessed it that the quest for freedom was a powerful and universal struggle. The Galactic Uprising was unfolding, a phenomenon that would change the course of history and forever alter the fabric of intergalactic relations. The Council's grip was slipping, and the rebels were poised to seize the moment, ready to reshape the galaxy into one where justice and equality could finally prevail.